So Josh has been playing Hogwarts Legacy for us and reviewing it. And if you could review it in one sentence, if that is possible, what would you say?
Yeah, Hogwarts Legacy is an ambitious action RPG that maybe stretches itself too thin as it tries to, give you the experience of becoming a student at Hogwarts School for Witchcraft and Wizardry and, saving the wizarding world from an ancient evil.
Yeah. So we could talk for hours about this game. There's so much. One of the things that you said in the review is like, if Avalanche can be accused of anything, it's that the studio has tried to do too much all at once. As a Harry Potter fan, I'd be like, that's great. But it's not necessarily the case, is it?
For me, while it pays a lot of sort of, fan service to the books, to the films, I think when I say it does too much all at once, it's not only does it have a complicated narrative arc with all of these sort of various elements, it's also a massive open world. It's a big RPG. It's an adventure story. And, we haven't had that many sort of magic-based action RPG sort of games, at least on this sort of scale. And for Avalanche to sort of try so much all at once is quite daunting. And, it isn't always successful in everything it's trying to do. But, it does a good job broadly, I think.
Yeah. So for a game where you play a student, how much homework do you have? How many classes do you have to go to? And what's it like taking the owls?
Okay, so there are classes you can attend: Charms, Defense Against the Dark Arts, Herbology, all of the classes, the main set of classes that a fifth year would be expected to take, but they're kind of, you don't really get to, sit and actually participate in the lessons all that much. They're kind of these really well-rendered, well-scripted cutscenes that kind of just, you get at certain points in the story. They teach you a spell, they give, a teacher might give you an assignment, and then you go out into the open world and complete it. But it's not, you can't really just go and attend classes.
Sounds like the perfect way to go to school. Like, you don't have to go to the classes you don't want to, and the ones that you do go to are cutscenes where they just give you the ability. From reading a review as well, Hogwarts itself, the building, the grounds and everything around it, seems like a character in and of itself.
Yeah, it's an absolutely stunning recreation of Hogwarts. It's this really, Hogwarts, you can just spend hours walking around it, there's apparitions moving through, Peeves is there causing mischief, the halls aren't packed with students, but the ones that are there are often, being shouted at by howler letters or messing around with magic. And it is an absolute, it's the best part of the game. It's a stunning, really, really good recreation of that world.
So it seems like they've stuck religiously to some parts of the world in the universe and then willfully ignored other parts when it suited them.
Yeah, so it's actually one of the, for big Harry Potter fans, this is one of the biggest problems with the game, is that it doesn't really establish which rules of the wizarding world are in place. So, there are talent trees in the game. One of them's for the sort of mastering the dark arts. Now, as a fifth year student who's hoping to sort of earn prefect status by the end of that fifth year, my natural inclination was to not touch that side of the game, when the reality of it is, it doesn't really care. And, it's the same with other aspects, there's no curfew at Hogwarts, except for when it's time for a stealth mission,
Oh no!
Yeah, it basically uses the rules when it wants to and discards them when it needs to.
So when we first started seeing the footage of this game, we knew the killing curse was going to be in there, what kind of blowback is there if you use a killing curse or you kill somebody who would do something are you going to get detention?
Yeah, so there are 26 spells in the game, 3 of which are the unforgivables. Now, you don't have to learn these, they're optional to learn.
Okay.
However, there is no real consequence for using any of them. If anything, they kind of make combat more diverse. But, for things that should get you thrown
into Azkaban,
at the very least out of Hogwarts, if not into Azkaban, the game just doesn't.
So you can be there being a prefect, being like, am I going to go? Am I going to go?
It just, the game doesn't register it really at all. I mean, it's a shame. I think for me, the better option would have been just to not have that stuff in the game if it's not going to reckon with the consequences.
So what I was most interested in is, how is the combat? Because it's not easy to do.
No. magic-based combat is never easy to do. You know, few games have really invested in those sorts of systems, and I think Avalanche's done a pretty good job with it. Like,
Okay.
wielding spells is really fun, particularly when you get sort of towards the middle to latter end of the game, where you've got like a big, you know, library of spells in your
The
arsenal.
ones that you like and the ones that work well together.
Exactly, and especially like the combat spaces are like packed with enemies, and it is super fun to like juggle different spells and juggle different enemies, and you've got, you know, you're surrounded and you're sort of flicking off different abilities and seeing how that impacts enemies, and they sort of all start to combine, all the spells combine and merge in really interesting ways. And for me, like, it is a combat heavy game, and it can be quite challenging actually, which surprised me. But it's the best part. Like, the combat is the most well executed part of the game.
Wow. So, how do you level up then? Do you get better ones? Do you pass tests in the school?
Yeah, so this, if combat's sort of the strongest part, like this RPG economy aspect of the game is the weakest by far. So rather than your level being tied to sort of your growing proficiency as a magician, it is instead tied to the gear you find. So, you know, offensive and defensive capabilities are tied to the stats you find on different scarves, hats, and cloaks. Now, thankfully, I mean, most of these look like absolutely ridiculous, but thankfully you're free to transmog any clothes that you have. It doesn't matter if you destroy them or sell them, you can still always transmog whatever you have to whatever you're wearing. But
Thank God.
it is a bit hollow, like this idea that you get more powerful as the clothes become better. It just doesn't really quite work within the fantasy that Hogwarts Legacy is sort of tapping into.
Oh well. So Avalanche Software have made a really inclusive and diverse game here.
Yeah, that was the sense I got. Like, one thing I really appreciated was just the sort of the different characters you meet are from different, you know, they offer a different perspective. Like, you get professors from, you know, wizarding schools from abroad. You know, meet characters who, there's a Onimus, who's one of the sort of one of the companions you get to spend time with, is blind and is sort of led around the school via his wand, which is something that we've not really seen before in that world. And it's just a really nice different mix of perspectives. And for me, it really just, it sort of better reflected the community that's sort of built around Harry Potter in the last, you know, 25 years, 26 years. And it's a small part of the game, but it felt important. I'm glad that they put the sort of energy into sort of reflecting that through Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah. So with all that being said and done, what score did you give it?
While the game is fun and the sort of recreation of some of the most iconic locations in Harry Potter, Hogsmeade, Hogwarts itself is absolutely fantastic, and it is a real delight to spend time in those places. Sadly, the game doesn't quite get it right with everything that it's trying to do. So, you know, the open world gets a bit bloated, the challenges become a bit messy and cumbersome, and the story doesn't quite have the narrative depth to sort of support the weight of Luming's different tendrils. However, you know, over the 35 or so hours I spent playing that game through, I did have a fun time, and, you know, I think it's a great first try at the world, and I do hope that Avalanche sort of goes back and sands down some of those rough edges and maybe refines its concepts and priorities a little bit for a sequel, because I think, you know, they could be onto something.
Yeah. All of the things that you mentioned are definitely things that can be like worked upon. I think the thing that I was most worried about was the combat, and the fact that they seem to have nailed that. It's like, right, that's done. Like, tweak the other bits, which are just like little few other. I'm really interested. I'm glad it's so good and it's so much fun. If you're playing it and you're enjoying it now and you need some guides, we're gonna have some guides going up on the YouTube channel, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of that.